Ma'am, you need to come with us now.
I've shown you my boarding pass 3 times. This is my seat. I paid for first class.
Black billionaire girl dragged off first class. They arrived before the plane took off and locks down the airline. Ma'am, you need to come with us now. I've shown you my boarding pass 3 times. She's in my seat. I paid for first class. Security is coming. If you don't comply, I'm not going anywhere. This is my seat. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a situation that requires immediate attention. Captain, we need to ground this aircraft immediately. What you just heard was a 22-year-old tech CEO being forcibly removed from first class. A middle-aged businessman who saw a young black woman sitting in seat 1A and decided she didn't belong there. But he had no idea that this wasn't just any passenger. And he definitely didn't know that her lawyer was already on the phone with the Federal Aviation Administration before security even reached the plane. You heard the confrontation. Now you're going to see how a single act of prejudice shut down an entire airline gate for 4 hours and cost one man everything. Stay with me. Her name is Zara Mitchell, 22 years old. Founder and CEO of CloudSync Technologies, a cloud-based data management platform that's currently valued at $300 million. But Zara didn't inherit this wealth. She didn't marry into it. She built it. At 19 years old, while most of her peers were cramming for midterms and deciding on majors, Zara sold her first app for $47 million. $47 million. The app was a productivity tool that used AI to optimize workflow for remote teams. She'd built it in her dorm room at Stanford during her freshman year. By the time she was a sophomore, she dropped out to run her company full-time. Now, at 22, she splits her time between Palo Alto and New York City. She has a penthouse in San Francisco overlooking the Bay, a brownstone in Brooklyn, and more money than most people will see in 10 lifetimes. But if you saw her walking down the street, you wouldn't know any of that. Zara doesn't wear designer clothes or dripping jewelry. She's not trying to prove anything to anyone. Today, like most days when she travels, she's wearing a Stanford hoodie, black leggings, and white sneakers. Her hair is pulled back in a simple ponytail. She's got her noise-canceling headphones around her neck and a leather portfolio bag slung over her shoulder. Inside that bag is her laptop, her iPad, and documents for the board meeting she's flying to New York to attend. This particular flight, this route from San Francisco to New York, Zara has taken it dozens of times. She flies this route twice a month, sometimes more. Always the same airline. Always first class. Always books weeks in advance because her schedule is planned down to the minute. And almost always she books seat 1A. The bulkhead seat. Extra legroom. Quiet. Perfect for working or sleeping through the 5-hour flight. 3 weeks ago, Zara paid $2,400 for this seat. She didn't use miles. She didn't get an upgrade. She paid full price just like she always does. The morning of the flight, Zara's alarm went off at 3:45 a.m. A 6 a.m. departure meant she needed to be at San Francisco International Airport by 4:30. She showered, dressed, grabbed her pre-packed bags and called an Uber. By 4:20, she was walking through the sliding doors of Terminal 3. The airport was quiet at that hour. Just the hum of early morning travelers, the smell of coffee from the few open cafes, and the fluorescent lights that made everything look slightly unreal. Zara checked in at the kiosk, her boarding pass appearing on her phone screen within seconds. First class priority boarding. Seat 1A. She made her way through security, got through pre-check in under 5 minutes, and headed straight to the airline lounge. She grabbed a coffee, black with 1 sugar, and a croissant she probably wouldn't finish. She found a seat near the window overlooking the tarmac and pulled out her iPad. Emails first. 43 unread since she went to bed 6 hours ago. She answered the urgent ones, flagged the rest for later. Then she opened the pitch deck for the afternoon meeting. Her company was in talks with a major investor group. This meeting could mean another $100 million in funding. She reviewed the slides, made a few notes, checked the financials one more time. At 5:15 a.m., the gate agent announced pre-boarding for passengers needing assistance and first-class ticket holders. Zara closed her iPad, finished her coffee, and walked to the gate. She was one of the first in line. She scanned her boarding pass, heard the beep, and walked down the jetway. The air inside smelled like recycled air and cleaning solution. When she stepped onto the plane, the lead flight attendant, a woman named Karen who Zara recognized from previous flights, smiled at her. "Ms. Mitchell, good to see you again." "1A as always." Zara smiled back, said good morning, and made her way to her seat. Seat 1A. Right side of the aircraft, bulkhead row. Zara stowed her bag in the overhead compartment, kept her portfolio and iPad with her, and settled into the seat. She pulled out her iPad, put her headphones on, and queued up a playlist. Soft instrumental music, the kind that helps her think or sleep. The plan was to sleep through most of the flight. She had a car picking her up at JFK at 11:30 a.m., and the meeting started at 2 p.m. She needed to be sharp. For the next 10 minutes, Zara sat in peace. A few other first-class passengers boarded. A woman in her 60s, pearls and a Chanel bag, took seat 2B. A younger couple, honeymooners maybe, settled into 3A and 3B. Everyone was quiet, minding their own business, doing that pre-flight ritual of getting comfortable. And then general boarding began. Zara was scrolling through her emails, half paying attention, when she felt someone standing next to her seat. Not just walking past. Standing. She glanced up. A white man mid-50s, maybe late 50s, was staring down at her. He was wearing an expensive suit, charcoal gray, crisp white shirt, red tie. His carry-on bag was one of those expensive hardshell ones, silver, with a leather tag hanging from the handle. His face was the kind of face you see in corporate boardrooms. Clean-shaven, good haircut, confident in that way that comes from decades of people listening when you talk. But right now, his expression was confused. And then irritated. He cleared his throat. Loudly. The kind of throat clear that's meant to get someone's attention. Zara removed one earbud. "Can I help you?" The man held up his phone, showing her a mobile boarding pass on the screen. "I think you're in my seat. If you want to see how this entitled passenger's assumptions completely backfire, hit that subscribe button right now." What do you think Zara should have said in this moment? Let me know in the comments. Zara looked at the man, then at his phone. She kept her voice calm, neutral. "This is 1A. That's what my boarding pass says." She pulled out her own phone, opened the Airline app, and turned the screen toward him. Seat 1A. Her name, Zara Mitchell, right there in bold letters. The man barely glanced at it. "Well, mine says 1A too." Zara looked at his phone more carefully. It said 11A. She could see it clearly. Row 11, seat A. "Yours says 11A. Row 11. This is row 1. The man squinted at his phone. His face was starting to flush, that creeping redness that starts at the collar and works its way up. "No, that's a 1. 1. Zara kept her tone patient, but firm. "That's 2 1s. 11. The man's voice rose just slightly, enough that the woman in 2B glanced over. "Are you calling me illiterate?" Before Zara could respond, Karen, the flight attendant, appeared in the aisle. Her smile was professional, but Zara could see the concern in her eyes. "Is everything okay here?" The man immediately turned to Karen, and his whole demeanor changed. He wasn't talking to Zara anymore. He was talking to someone he assumed would take his side. "This girl is in my seat." Karen asked to see both boarding passes. Zara handed over her phone without a word. The man held up his phone, and Karen looked at it. There was a pause. Just a second, but Zara saw it. The moment Karen realized what was happening. "Sir, this says 11A. The man didn't miss a beat. "I paid for first class. I have a conference call I need to prepare for. I need this seat." Karen's voice was still polite, but there was steel underneath it now. "Sir, you're assigned to 11A, which is also first class, just 3 rows back." He cut her off. "I specifically selected 1A when I booked. Check your system." Karen nodded, pulled out the handheld scanner that flight attendants use to check boarding passes. "Let me scan your pass." She scanned the barcode on his phone. The scanner beeped. "Seat 11A. Whitmore, Bradford." Karen looked up at him. "Mr. Whitmore, you're in 11A. I can help you get settled. I want this seat." How much did she pay for it? Zara, who had been silent this whole time, answered. I paid full price 3 weeks ago. Brad Whitmore turned back to her. How much? Zara felt the shift in the air. This wasn't about a seat anymore. I don't think that's your business. Brad turned back to Karen. Did she use miles? Some kind of upgrade? Because I paid cash. Karen's professionalism was cracking just a little. Sir, I can't discuss another passenger's ticket. Brad reached for his wallet. I'll pay the difference. Whatever she paid, I'll pay double. Just move her. Zara removed her headphones completely now. She closed her iPad, set it on her lap, and looked directly at Brad Whitmore. I'm not moving. Of course you're not. You probably got this seat through some diversity program. The cabin went completely silent. The honeymooners in row 3 stopped talking. The woman in 2B looked up from her magazine. Even the other passengers still boarding in the aisle slowed down, sensing something was happening. Karen's face went pale. Sir, that's inappropriate. Brad raised his voice. I want to speak to the captain. Karen pressed the call button on the cabin wall. Within 30 seconds, another flight attendant appeared. This one was a man, tall, probably in his 30s, with dark hair and the kind of calm demeanor that comes from years of dealing with difficult passengers. His name tag said Marcus. Karen briefed him quietly, but Zara could hear some of it. Passenger in 11A is refusing his assigned seat and demanding this passenger move from 1A. Marcus looked at Brad, then at Zara, then at the boarding passes Karen handed him. Marcus's voice was calm but firm. Sir, you need to take your assigned seat or deplane. Brad was standing in the aisle now, arms crossed, blocking the flow of passengers trying to board. I'm not going anywhere until this is sorted out. She's the one who needs to move. Marcus turned to Zara. Ma'am, I apologize for this. Your ticket is valid. You don't have to do anything. Brad's voice dripped with sarcasm. Oh, so you're taking her side? This is discrimination. Marcus pulled out his radio. We need airport security to first class. Brad actually smiled. But when they get here, they'll see I'm right. Zara quietly opened her phone. She didn't make a show of it. She just opened her messages and sent a text to her assistant, Maya. Get David on the phone now. David was her lawyer. Well, one of her lawyers. The one on retainer specifically for situations like this. Not that Zara had ever been in a situation exactly like this, but David handled everything from contract disputes to harassment claims. He'd told Zara once, if you ever feel unsafe or discriminated against, you call me immediately. She was calling him now. 2 airport security officers boarded the plane within 3 minutes. They were both wearing the standard uniform, badges, radios. One was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and a tired expression. The other was younger, maybe late 20s, and looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Brad Whitmore immediately approached them. Finally. This woman is in my seat and the crew is refusing to help me. The older officer asked to see both boarding passes. Zara handed over her phone. Brad showed his. The officer looked at both, looked at the seat numbers on the overhead bins, and turned to Brad. Sir, your seat is 11A. Brad's face was red now. Fully red. I don't care what it says. I selected 1A. Check the reservation. The officer looked at Marcus, who nodded toward the gate. The officer spoke into his radio, asking the gate agent to pull up the reservation. A moment later, the radio crackled back. Whitmore, Bradford. Seat 11A. Booked 2 days ago. The officer turned back to Brad. You're assigned to 11A. You need to sit down or we'll have to remove you from the aircraft. Brad looked at Zara, then at the officers, then back at Zara. Remove me? What about her? The younger officer stepped forward. She hasn't done anything wrong. Brad sneered. Because she's. He stopped. But everyone in first class knew what he was about to say. Everyone knew. Brad refused to move. He refused to sit in 11A. He refused to deplane. The standoff lasted another 5 minutes. The captain, a woman in her 40s with silver hair and captain's bars on her uniform, came out of the cockpit. She assessed the situation, spoke quietly to Marcus and the security officers, and made an announcement over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a delay due to a passenger non-compliance issue. We'll update you shortly. Zara's phone buzzed. David. She answered, keeping her voice low. I'm being harassed on a flight. A passenger is demanding my seat and security is here. David's voice was sharp, alert. Are they asking you to leave? Marcus approached Zara at that exact moment. Ms. Mitchell, I'm so sorry, but for safety and to get this flight moving, would you be willing to? Zara spoke into the phone, loud enough for Marcus to hear. They're asking me to give up my seat. David's voice came through loud and clear. Tell them absolutely not. And tell them I'm contacting the FAA right now. Marcus's face went pale. Ma'am, I'm not asking you to leave, just if you'd be willing to. Zara looked at him. The older security officer made the call. Sir, you're being removed from this flight. It took both officers to physically escort Brad Whitmore off the plane. He didn't go quietly. You're removing the wrong person. As they walked him down the aisle toward the exit, he shouted back at Zara. This is ridiculous. She doesn't belong in first class. The plane was silent. Passengers in economy, who had heard the shouting, craned their necks to see what was happening. The honeymooners in row 3 looked shocked. The woman in 2B shook her head slowly. Karen apologized to Zara again, her voice shaking slightly. I'm so sorry. Zara just nodded. She put her headphones back on, but she didn't press play. She couldn't. This is just the beginning of how badly Brad Whitmore miscalculated. If you're hooked, subscribe now because what happens next will blow your mind. Do you think the airline handled this correctly so far? Comment below. The plane sat at the gate. Boarding was suspended. The passengers already on board were confused, restless. Some were checking their watches, their phones, calculating how much this delay was going to cost them. Others were whispering to each other, speculating about what they'd just witnessed. Zara sat in 1A, staring at her iPad screen but not really seeing it. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were shaking just slightly, and she pressed them flat against her thighs so no one would notice. She'd been calm during the confrontation. She'd kept her voice even, her responses measured. But now, sitting alone while the crew dealt with the aftermath, the adrenaline was catching up with her. This wasn't the first time someone had questioned whether she belonged somewhere. It wasn't even the first time someone had assumed she couldn't afford something. But it was the first time it had happened like this. In public. On a plane. With dozens of witnesses. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. The captain made another announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the continued delay. We're working to resolve the situation and will provide an update as soon as possible. Passengers groaned. Someone in economy shouted, "Can we just go already?" Zara felt eyes on her. She knew some people were blaming her. She'd heard the muttered comments as Brad was being removed. All this over a seat. Why didn't she just move? It would have been easier. But it wouldn't have been easier. Not really. Because moving would have meant accepting that Brad Whitmore was right. That she didn't belong in 1A. That a young black woman in a hoodie couldn't possibly have paid for first class. That her presence was the problem, not his bigotry. And then 3 people in dark suits boarded the aircraft. They had badges clipped to their belts. Federal Aviation Administration. They walked directly to first class, and the lead officer, a woman in her 40s with short brown hair and sharp eyes, looked around the cabin. Zara Mitchell? Zara raised her hand slightly. The officer approached. Ms. Mitchell, I'm Officer Lisa Brennan with the FAA. We received a complaint about passenger discrimination on this flight. Can you tell us what happened? Zara took a breath and recounted everything. The man approaching her seat. His insistence that she was in his seat despite both boarding passes clearly showing different assignments. His refusal to accept the truth even when the flight attendant scanned his pass. His offer to pay double to have her moved. His comment about diversity programs. His statement as he was being removed that she didn't belong in first class. Officer Brennan took notes on a tablet. She asked follow-up questions. How long have you been flying this route? Do you have documentation of your ticket purchase? Have you experienced issues with this airline before? Zara answered everything. She pulled up her airline app, showed her flight history. Showed the receipt for this ticket, purchased 3 weeks prior. Showed her platinum status with the airline. I fly this route twice a month, minimum. Always first class. Always this airline. Today, a passenger claimed I didn't belong in my seat and demanded I be removed. Officer Brennan asked about the crew's response. Zara hesitated. The flight attendants verified my ticket immediately. They tried to de-escalate, but they did ask if I'd be willing to move to accommodate him. Officer Brennan's expression didn't change, but Zara saw her make a note on the tablet. And you refused? Zara nodded. I refused. Officer Brennan and the other 2 FAA officers spent the next 30 minutes interviewing everyone involved. They spoke to Karen and Marcus separately. They spoke to the captain. They spoke to the 2 security officers who had removed Brad. They pulled up security footage from the gate cameras that had a partial view into the aircraft. They reviewed Brad Whitmore's booking confirmation. He had indeed selected 11A. There was no error, no glitch, no double booking. He'd simply misread his boarding pass and refused to admit it. But that wasn't all they found. When Officer Brennan ran Brad Whitmore's name through the airline system, 3 prior complaints appeared. 3. The first was from 8 months ago. A woman flying from Dallas to Chicago claimed Brad had demanded her seat, insisted she'd stolen his upgrade, and made comments about her being too young to afford business class. The second was from 5 months ago. Another woman, this time on a flight from Boston to Los Angeles. Brad had accused her of using her husband's miles, said she didn't look like a business traveler. The third was from 2 months ago. An Asian passenger, a man, flying from Seattle to New York. Brad had claimed the man's boarding pass was fraudulent, had demanded to see identification, had told the crew he was concerned about security. In every case, the airline had documented the complaint. In every case, Brad had been spoken to by a supervisor. In every case, nothing more had been done. No suspension. No ban. Just notes in a file that nobody acted on. Officer Brennan returned to Zara's seat. Her expression was serious. Ms. Mitchell, I need you to know that this passenger has a pattern of behavior. This is not the first time he's targeted another passenger based on assumptions about who they are or what they can afford. The airline has documentation going back months. Zara felt her chest tighten. So this could have been prevented. Officer Brennan didn't answer directly. We're grounding this flight pending a full investigation. The announcement came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, due to a federal investigation, this flight has been cancelled. Please deplane and see the gate agents for rebooking on the next available flight. We apologize for the inconvenience. The reaction was immediate. Groans. Shouts. Passengers started grabbing their bags, their faces twisted in frustration and anger. As they filed past Zara's seat, some of them glared at her. One woman, middle-aged with a designer handbag, muttered just loud enough for Zara to hear, all this because she couldn't just move. A businessman in his 30s shook his head as he passed. Unbelievable. Some people just want to make everything about race. But then the black businessman from seat 2C stopped next to her. He was older, maybe 60, with gray at his temples and kind eyes. He leaned down slightly. You did the right thing. Don't let them make you feel bad. This isn't your fault. Zara nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The man squeezed her shoulder gently and kept moving. Zara was one of the last to deplane. The FAA officers escorted her off the aircraft, through the jetway, and into the terminal. And that's when she saw him. Brad Whitmore. He was standing near the gate desk, handcuffed, with 2 airport police officers flanking him. His expensive suit was wrinkled now. His face was still red, but now it was red with humiliation and rage. When he saw Zara, he lunged forward as much as the handcuffs allowed. This is your fault. Do you know who I am? One of the FAA officers stepped between them immediately. Mr. Whitmore, you're making this worse. Brad wasn't done. She's nobody. I'm a senior partner at Whitmore and Associates. I have clients. I have a reputation. Officer Brennan's voice was cold. We know exactly who you are, Mr. Whitmore. And we know who she is too. Brad's mouth opened and closed. He looked at Zara, really looked at her, and for the first time, there was something like doubt in his eyes. Who are you? Officer Brennan didn't answer him. She turned to Zara. Ms. Mitchell will need a formal statement, but that can be done later today. For now, the airline has offered you accommodations. Zara shook her head. I don't need accommodations. I need to get to New York. Officer Brennan nodded. I'll make sure that happens. Within 20 minutes, Zara was escorted to a private airline lounge. Not the regular lounge where she'd had coffee that morning. A private one, the kind reserved for airline executives and VIPs. The space was quiet, almost empty. Leather chairs, soft lighting, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the tarmac. A staff member brought her water, coffee, anything she needed. And then the airline's vice president of operations arrived. His name was Richard Chin. He was in his 50s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. He sat down across from Zara, his expression grave. Ms. Mitchell, on behalf of the airline, I want to offer you a full and unreserved apology for what happened today. What you experienced was unacceptable. Our crew should never have asked you to consider giving up your seat. You were the victim in this situation, and we failed you. Zara listened. Richard continued. We're offering you a full refund for today's flight, $10,000 in travel vouchers, and an upgrade to our highest tier status. Zara set down her coffee. I don't want vouchers. Richard blinked. I'm sorry? Zara leaned forward. I want policy changes. Richard's expression shifted. What do you mean? Zara's voice was calm but firm. How many complaints did Brad Whitmore have in your system before today? Richard hesitated. I'd need to check the specifics. 3. He had 3 prior complaints. 3 incidents where he targeted passengers, made discriminatory assumptions, caused disruptions. And what did your airline do? You put notes in a file. You did nothing. Richard was silent. Zara continued. I want mandatory implicit bias training for all airline staff. Flight attendants, gate agents, pilots, everyone. I want a passenger bill of rights posted in every cabin that explicitly states discrimination will not be tolerated. And I want a direct reporting system where passengers can report discrimination and have it escalated immediately, not buried in a file. Richard shifted in his seat. Ms. Mitchell, those are significant operational changes. We'll take that under advisement. Zara's voice was steel now. You'll do it. Or my lawyers will file a federal complaint, and I will make sure every major outlet, from CNN to the Wall Street Journal to TikTok, knows what happened here today. I'll make sure they know that your airline allowed a serial harasser to fly for months without consequences. I'll make sure they know that your crew asked the victim to accommodate her abuser. Richard swallowed. I'll bring it to the board. Zara stood. You do that. And while you're at it, book me on the next flight to New York. Any airline but this one. Brad Whitmore thought he was untouchable. He was wrong. Subscribe to see how his entire life falls apart. What would you have done in Zara's position? Let me know below. While Zara sat in that private lounge, while Richard Chin scrambled to contact his board of directors, while FAA officers filed their reports, the story was already spreading. Because in today's world, nothing stays private. One of the passengers from economy had filmed part of the confrontation. Not all of it, but enough. 30 seconds of Brad Whitmore standing in the aisle, his face red, his voice raised. You probably got this seat through some diversity program. Karen's shocked response. Sir, that's inappropriate. And then Brad's final shout as he was being escorted off. She doesn't belong in first class. The passenger posted the video to Twitter at 9:42 a.m. with a simple caption. Just watched a black woman get harassed on my flight because a white man decided she couldn't afford first class. This is what racism looks like in 2024. By 10 a.m., the video had 5,000 views. By 11 a.m., 50,000. By noon, it had 500,000. The comments section exploded. People were outraged. They were sharing the video, tagging the airline, demanding answers. Who is this man? What's his name? Someone needs to identify him. Within 2 hours, internet sleuths had done exactly that. Brad Whitmore, senior partner at Whitmore & Associates, a corporate law firm based in San Francisco. His LinkedIn profile was found. His firm's website. His professional headshot, smiling in that same expensive suit. Screenshots of everything started circulating. By 2 p.m., the video had 2 million views. News outlets were picking it up. A local San Francisco news station ran a segment. An incident at San Francisco airport this morning has sparked outrage online after a passenger was accused of discrimination. A tech blog picked up the story with the headline, "Silicon Valley lawyer accused of harassing young black woman on flight." And then someone found out who Zara was. It didn't take long. Zara Mitchell, CEO of CloudSync Technologies, sold her first company at 19. Current net worth estimated at over $200 million. The irony was not lost on anyone. Brad Whitmore had accused a woman worth $200 million of not being able to afford a first-class seat. The story went viral in the truest sense of the word. It wasn't just trending. It was everywhere. TikTok videos, Instagram posts, Reddit threads dissecting every frame of the video. And the airline's response, or lack thereof, became part of the story too. People wanted to know why Brad Whitmore had been allowed to fly for months despite multiple complaints. They wanted to know why the crew had asked Zara to consider moving. They wanted accountability. Zara, meanwhile, was on a different airline's flight to New York. She'd booked a seat on a competitor, left San Francisco airport at 2 p.m., and was in the air by 2:30. She put her phone on airplane mode before takeoff, so she didn't see the explosion happening online. She didn't know that her name was trending. She didn't know that reporters were already reaching out to her company's PR team. She slept through most of the flight, exhausted from the adrenaline crash. Brad Whitmore, on the other hand, was very much aware of what was happening. He'd been released from airport police custody after being cited for interfering with a flight crew, a federal offense that carried a fine of up to $25,000. He'd taken an Uber home, still in his wrinkled suit, still seething with anger and humiliation. When he walked into his apartment, he checked his phone. 63 missed calls. Over 200 texts. His email inbox was flooded. His heart sank as he opened Twitter. His face was everywhere. The video had been watched millions of times. His name, his firm, his entire professional profile was being dragged through the digital mud. The comments were vicious. "This man is a disgrace to the legal profession. Fire him immediately. How many other people has he harassed? Someone needs to disbar this racist." And worst of all, the tweet from his own firm's official account, posted just 20 minutes ago, "We are aware of the incident involving Brad Whitmore. We are investigating and will issue a statement shortly." Brad called his managing partner. The call went to voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. He tried the firm's main line. The receptionist, who he'd known for 15 years, answered with a cold, professional tone. "I'm sorry, Mr. Whitmore, but I've been instructed not to put through your calls." Brad's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" The receptionist's voice was apologetic but firm. "You'll need to speak with HR. I can transfer you." The HR director answered. Her voice was tight. "Brad, we need you to come in tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Do not speak to any media. Do not post anything on social media. Do not contact clients. We'll discuss this tomorrow." Brad tried to argue. "This is a misunderstanding. The video doesn't show everything. I was just..." The HR director cut him off. "Tomorrow morning." The line went dead. Brad spent the rest of the evening watching his life unraveling in real time. His firm issued an official statement at 6 p.m. Whitmore and Associates does not condone discrimination or harassment in any form. We are conducting a thorough investigation into today's incident. Brad Whitmore has been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of this investigation. By 8 p.m., his firm's Yelp page and Google reviews were flooded with one-star ratings. Fire Brad Whitmore or lose all your clients. I'll never work with a firm that employs a racist. The next morning, Brad arrived at his firm's office at 7:45 a.m. He was escorted not to a conference room, but to a small office he'd never been in before. The managing partner was there, along with the HR director and the firm's general counsel. The managing partner didn't waste time. "Brad, we're terminating your partnership effective immediately." Brad's face went white. "You can't do that. I've been with this firm for 20 years. The managing partner slid a folder across the table. "Actually, we can. Your partnership agreement includes a morals clause. Your conduct yesterday brought significant negative attention to the firm. We've lost 3 clients already. 2 more have threatened to leave if you remain. Brad opened the folder. Inside was a termination letter, already drafted. You have until end of business today to clear out your office. We'll handle the public announcement. Brad left the building at 9 a.m., carrying a box of his personal items. His framed degrees. Photos of his kids. A coffee mug that said world's best lawyer. He'd been a senior partner at a prestigious firm for 2 decades. He'd built a career, a reputation. And in less than 24 hours, it was gone. Zara landed at JFK at 11:30 a.m. New York time. When she turned her phone off airplane mode, it exploded with notifications. Hundreds of texts, emails, missed calls. Her assistant Maya had sent a message marked urgent. The video went viral. You're trending everywhere. Press 1 statements. What do you want me to do? Zara called her immediately. Maya picked up on the first ring. Oh my God, are you okay? Zara sat in the back of the car service taking her into Manhattan. I'm fine. What's happening? Maya filled her in. The video. The millions of views. The identification of Brad Whitmore. His firm placing him on leave. The airline's stock dropping 2% in after-hours trading. The outcry for policy changes. Zara listened, her chest tight. I didn't want this. I just wanted to sit in my seat. Maya's voice was gentle. I know. But this is bigger than you now. What do you want to say? Zara thought for a moment. Nothing. Not yet. Let's see how the airline responds first. But reach out to David. If they don't implement real changes, we're filing a federal complaint. Zara made her board meeting at 2 p.m. She delivered her pitch flawlessly, despite everything. The investors were impressed. They agreed to the funding round. $100 million. After the meeting, one of the investors, an older black man who'd built his own tech empire in the 90s, pulled her aside. I saw what happened this morning. You handled it with grace. But don't let them off easy. Make them change. Zara nodded. I intend to. That evening, 3 days after the incident, the airline issued a press release. Effective immediately, the airline was implementing mandatory implicit bias training for all employees. They were establishing a passenger bill of rights that would be posted in all cabins and on their website. They were creating a direct reporting system for discrimination complaints, with a commitment to investigate within 24 hours. And they were instituting a zero-tolerance policy for passengers with multiple harassment complaints. Brad Whitmore's official termination from his law firm was announced the same day. In a statement, the firm said, "We do not condone discrimination of any kind. Brad Whitmore's actions do not reflect the values of this firm. He is no longer employed here." Brad's professional reputation was destroyed. His LinkedIn profile was deactivated. His name became a cautionary tale in corporate law circles. 2 weeks later, Brad posted a public apology on a newly created social media account. His old accounts had been deleted after being flooded with hate. The apology was carefully worded, likely written by a lawyer. I want to sincerely apologize for my actions on the morning of the incident. I made assumptions based on appearance and I was wrong. I never intended to cause harm, but I understand that impact matters more than intent. I am committed to learning from this experience and doing better. I have enrolled in sensitivity training and am working with a counselor to address my implicit biases. I hope that, in time, I can demonstrate through my actions that I am capable of change. The apology was met with skepticism. Too little, too late. This is damage control, not genuine remorse. He's only sorry he got caught. Zara never responded to the apology. She never acknowledged it publicly at all. Brad Whitmore lost everything, but Zara's fight wasn't over. If this story matters to you, subscribe and share it. Should Brad have faced even harsher consequences? Comment your thoughts. 6 months passed. The viral video faded from the daily news cycle, as all viral content eventually does. But the impact lingered. Brad Whitmore never returned to corporate law. He couldn't. His name was too toxic. He took a job at a small firm doing contract review, work that didn't require client-facing interaction. His salary was a fraction of what he'd made as a senior partner. His wife filed for divorce 3 months after the incident, citing irreconcilable differences. His adult children stopped speaking to him. He became a pariah in his own community. But this story isn't really about Brad Whitmore. It's about Zara Mitchell and the cost that she paid for standing her ground. Because here's the truth that nobody talks about in these viral justice stories. Even when you win, you lose something. Zara continued to fly the San Francisco to New York route. She still booked first class. She still chose seat 1A when it was available. But everything had changed. Now, when she boarded a plane, she was hyper-aware of every glance, every stare. She noticed when people did double takes. She noticed when flight attendants paid extra attention to her, walking that careful line between being helpful and being overly solicitous. She noticed when other passengers whispered, pointing discreetly. Is that her? The woman from the video? She kept documentation for everything now. Screenshots of her boarding passes. Receipts for every ticket. Confirmations saved in a special folder on her phone. Just in case. Just in case someone else decided to question whether she belonged. She kept her lawyer's number on speed dial. She recorded audio on her phone during boarding, discreetly, just in case she needed evidence. The sense of safety she'd once had, the ability to exist in spaces without constantly justifying her presence, was gone. She'd lost the privilege of anonymity too. Strangers recognized her. Some were supportive. You're an inspiration. I'm so glad you didn't back down. Others were hostile. You made such a big deal over nothing. You ruined that man's life. She couldn't go anywhere without someone having an opinion about what she should have done, how she should have reacted, whether she'd gone too far or not far enough. Her company thrived. The publicity had actually been good for CloudSync Technologies. Investors saw her as a fighter, someone who wouldn't back down. Her user base grew. Her board was happy. But Zara herself felt the weight of being a symbol. She hadn't asked to be the face of a movement. She just wanted to sit in the seat she'd paid for. Late one night, sitting in her San Francisco apartment overlooking the bay, Zara thought about what had happened. About Brad Whitmore and his assumptions. About the flight attendants who'd asked her to consider moving. About the passengers who'd blamed her for the delay. About the viral video and the millions of strangers who'd turned her worst moment into entertainment. About the cost of being right. The airline had changed their policies. That was good. Real change had happened. But Zara knew that policies on paper didn't change what was in people's hearts. Somewhere, right now, another black woman was being followed in a store. Another black man was being pulled over for driving a nice car. Another black family was being questioned in a neighborhood where they belonged. The assumptions persisted. The bias remained. One viral video, one man's downfall, one airline's policy change. It was a drop in an ocean of prejudice. Zara still flew first class. She still traveled twice a month. She still sat in 1A when she could. But she never felt the same peace she'd felt that morning before Brad Whitmore appeared next to her seat. She'd learned a lesson she wished she didn't have to learn, that being black meant your ownership of everything was conditional. Your seat on a plane. Your car in a nice neighborhood. Your home in a good area. Your success in a boardroom. It was all subject to challenge, always requiring proof, always defended against the assumption that you didn't earn it, didn't deserve it, didn't belong. Brad Whitmore had seen a young black woman in a Stanford hoodie sitting in seat 1A and decided a crime had been committed. He didn't see her education. He didn't see her achievements. He didn't see her bank account or her business or her worth. He saw race and property and made an assumption. The FAA investigation proved him wrong. The viral video exposed his bigotry. His firm fired him. His life fell apart. But none of it, erased the fundamental truth of what had happened. In that moment, on that plane, Brad Whitmore had looked at Zara Mitchell and decided she was less than. That her boarding pass was suspicious. That her presence was an anomaly. That she needed to be removed. And Zara, who had built a tech empire from nothing, who had outsmarted venture capitalists twice her age, who had earned every dollar in her bank account, had to prove she deserved to sit in a seat she'd paid $2,400 for. That was the cost. Not the stress of the confrontation. Not the exhaustion of the viral moment. Not even the loss of anonymity. The cost was knowing that no matter how much she achieved, no matter how much money she made, no matter how many companies she built, there would always be someone who looked at her and saw a threat, a mistake, someone who didn't belong. The video of Brad Whitmore being escorted off the plane has been viewed over 20 million times now. It's used in corporate training videos about implicit bias. It's cited in articles about discrimination in travel. It's become a case study. But for Zara, it's not a case study. It's not a teaching moment. It's the morning she learned that dignity has to be fought for, that respect has to be demanded, that belonging is not given but seized. She doesn't regret refusing to move. She'd do it again. But she also knows that the fight isn't over. It never really is. Because somewhere, right now, another Brad Whitmore is boarding another plane, seeing another Zara Mitchell, and making another assumption. And that Zara will have to decide, do I fight? Do I prove myself? Do I stand my ground? And whatever she chooses, she'll pay a price. Zara Mitchell still flies first class. She still chooses seat 1A. But she never sleeps anymore. She stays awake. Aware. Ready. Because she knows now that being who she is means always being on guard. Always having to prove. Always having to justify. The seat is hers. But the peace that should come with it? That was taken from her the moment Brad Whitmore cleared his throat and said, "I think you're in my seat." And no viral video, no FAA investigation, no policy change can give that back. This is the reality that millions face every single day. If this story opened your eyes, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. What's one thing you'll do differently after hearing Zara's story? Let me know in the comments below.
Ma'am, you need to come with us now.
I've shown you my boarding pass 3 times. This is my seat. I paid for first class.